Good morning, this is Rabbi Shlomo Furst here in Yeshiva Tsama Nafshi, located in Yerushalayim here at Kodesh, not too far from the central bus station on Rehov Zikr Yaakov number 6. This is our second shir, Mishna Berura, and we've got your breakfast ready for you, coffee as well, other good things to eat and drink. If you like, please join us. If you're coming from Furst, we'd love to have you participate in our shiring as well. If you're living here in Yerushalayim and Israel as well, there are lots of people coming from Shemesh, other outlying areas of Yerushalayim, coming and enjoying your morning or other parts of the day here in Yeshiva Tsama Nafshi. Okay, we're learning about this Purim. Tov Reish Pei-Chet. The dinim were the laws which are relevant to these different places that are reading the Megillah on different days. Basically, depending upon whether the cities were walled cities at the time of Yeshua ben Nun's conquest of Eretz Israel or not. And Yeshua is going to explain to us why that should be. Why is it dependent upon Yeshua ben Nun? Basic question is, what does Yeshua ben Nun have to do with Purim? Right? He lived maybe a good 1,000 years or so before the time of Purim, right? So why should Yeshua ben Nun, as great as he was, the Talmud of Moshe Rabbeinu, why should he have to do anything with Purim? Something you can ask somebody on Purim in the midst of your celebrations. See if they give you a good answer. But the real answer is here in the Mishna Berura. We'll see all about that. Let's just review the Mechaber. Matzah, you like to read a bit?
Okay, where are we?
Sure, that'll be in Tov Reish Pei-Ches.
Right.
And the Mechaber, that's going to be the Shulchan Aruch to begin with. And then we'll go down to the Mishna Berura.
Okay, which letter? I mean, which pair?
That's in Tov Reish Pei-Ches.
Paragraph?
Right.
Okay. Karakim?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Karakim hamukafin choma mimos Yehoshua bin Nun.
Okay, so Karakim, you have cities, Hamukafim, which are surrounded choma by a wall, right? You have cities which were surrounded by a wall, miyemos, from the time of Yeshua ben Nun, right? So if you have a place which had a wall around it at the time of Yeshua ben Nun's conquest of Eretz Israel, then they'll be reading on a special day. Mishkaber will tell us about that in a moment.
Afilu einan mukafin achshav karin base
It's Tes Vav.
base tet vav.
Base is a preface, and Tes Vav is meaning that's 15th of Adar. Right?
Okay.
Everyone else is going to be reading on the Yud Dalet on the 14th of Adar. There are places like Yerushalayim that did in fact have a wall around them at the time of Yeshua ben Nun's conquest, right? Tes Vav as well. Yericho also. Right? I don't know if there are Jews in Yericho anymore, but obviously that was those mice of the event that took place. The walls came tumbling down, right? So there obviously were walls in Yericho at the time of Yeshua ben Nun's conquest. Okay, let's stop here with the Mechaber and let's see what the Mishna Berura is going to explain about
just
it.
to translate that phrase, even if they're not surrounded by a wall now,
Right.
we read on the 15th.
Yes. So even if they may have had a wall, meaning Jericho did not have a wall, does not have a wall now. But it certainly had a wall when Yeshua ben Nun conquered it, right? But there's no wall around Jericho anymore.
Right.
As a matter of fact, it's a decree not to rebuild Jericho at all, right? Especially the walls. So that Jericho, if there would be a group of Jews in Jericho, they would read on Tes Vav. Let's take a look at the Mishna. Who's going to explain this?
Maybe it's Dafka Gim Yoshua bin Nun. He was the first one that fought against Amalek. They were talking about Amalek.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a nice
Could
interesting.
be,
That's
could be,
interesting.
yeah.
That's an interesting point. Yeah,
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah.
So Jerusalem did not have a wall.
No, apparently they did. Apparently.
They did?
We read on it as well.
Oh, so the non-Jews had a wall.
Yeah, well, there were no, the only Jews that existed at the time were those Jews that came out of Mitzrayim, who were Makabel Torah, and they came for 40 years through the Midbar. There were no Jews living anywhere else in the world, right? All the Jews that existed at the time were with Moshe Rabbeinu, and then, as Moshe Rabbeinu was niftar on Zion Adar, and then approximately a month later, they came into Eretz Yisrael.
So when David HaMelech built the wall, that was in addition to the original wall?
Probably not. Okay. Like to continue with the Mishnah Berura, Nafshi?
Hamukafim choma mimus
Mois.
mimois Yehoshua ben Nun ki bizman Mordechai. Is that Mordechai?
Mordechai.
Mordechai, okay.
That's our hero, Mordechai.
That's the man. Okay. Bizman, thank you, Israel. Mordechai. Ba'es hanes. Kasiv shahahudim. Shebachol makom nilchamu biyom shalosha asar v'nachu biyom Arba'a asav va'asu oso mishteh v'simcha.
Okay, so at the time of Mordechai, at the time of the miracle, right, it says in the Megillah, Yehudim v'kol makom nilchamu b'yom shlosha. So the Jews in all the places battled on the 13th of, that was the 13th of Adar. V'nachamu, they rested from their battle, b'yom arba'asa. And on the 14th of Adar, the battle was over. The battle had ceased the day before. It was a one-day battle. And that day, the 14th, they celebrated their victory b'mishna v'simcha, with feasting and joy. So on the 14th, they stopped. They had no more enemies to kill. They had killed out their enemies. And then the next day after the battle, they had a celebration, a victory celebration of feasting and joy.
Is there any significance to the different words that it uses for time? He uses mimos, and then bisman, and then be'es. Is there any reason why it's using these different phrases?
Yeah, mimois is usually a historical reference to a person, meaning the person, literally his days. You know,
Right.
Yeshua ben, in the days of Yeshua, it's literally the days of Yeshua ben Nun, right? Bisman, in the time of Mordechai, right?
But he's a person, famous person.
Yeah. Look, it could have said Yemos Mordechai. It could have said Yemos Mordechai as well. They're more or less synonymous. The ace at the time of the names. You wouldn't say Yemos Hames. No, you wouldn't say the days of the names. Days are usually reference to a person. The ace is actually usually an event. Ace is usually, I would imagine, reference to an event.
Okay. So Zman and Yamos is pretty much synonyms.
Yeah, you could have said Bisman Hanes also at the time of the miracle. Could have possibly said Bisman, somewhat part of it. Yemos in general, I would say that was a reference to a person.
Okay.
Yeah, person's lifetime. Okay, so that was all in on the 13th. The battle took place. Now with Shushan.
Uvshushan nitan Lahudim lahilachem im ha'akum gam biyom arba'a asar v'lo asu yom tov ad chamisha asar.
Okay, very good. And Shushan, that was the capital city where Achashverosh was located. Haman was located there. Haman was already dead 11 months when the battle took place, but there was Mordechai and Esther and everyone else in Shushan, the capital of Achashverosh's kingdom. So it was given to the Jews another day to battle against the enemies on the 14th as well. So they were given a day on the 14th to battle against their enemies. There were so many enemies of the Jews in Shushan and Berura, wasn't enough to kill them out in one day. And another day, Esther went into Achashverosh to say, listen, didn't kill all the enemies yet. We need another day to kill enemies. He says, okay.
What does ha'akum literally mean?
Oive kochavim. Oive ayin. Oive kum kochavim.
Umazalot.
Umazalot. Kochavim umazlos. Yeah, very good, very good. Oive kochavim, the worshippers of the stars and constellations. Yeah. They were the original, that was the original of Berura, the stars and constellations. Okay.
V'chevan שבעושו זמן נחלקו לשני ימים, ולכן כשקבע מרדכי ואסתר, מרדכי and Esther, והסכמת אנשי כנסת הגדולה לקבוע פורים, לדורוס הילקו גם כן עושו לשני ימים.
Okay, so therefore, since the battle in Shushan took place on the 13th and an additional day of the 14th, yeah, and they didn't make a Yom Tov ad Chamisha, so they didn't make a Yom Tov, a day of celebration, until the 15th, Rekevim Ba'osazman, and therefore, since at that particular time, Nichalkal is Shnei Yamim, therefore, since at the time of the actual events of Purim, it was split into 2 days. When all the rest of the world, except for Shushan, the battle was on the 13th and the celebration was on the 14th. In Shushan, the battle was on the 13th and on the 14th, and the celebration was on the 15th. So since originally it was broken up into 2 days, right?
So what about the regular cities? When was the battle on?
What?
13th and the 14th, right?
Where? When?
Regular cities, not Shushan.
No, opposite. Everyone else except Shushan battled on the 13th and had Yom Tov, Mishna, V'Simcha on the 14th. And Shushan, 13th and the 14th, and the 15th was a day of Simcha and Mishna. Now, so therefore, Lechein B'Kavah Mordechai ve'Esther, therefore when Mordechai and Esther established the celebrations of Purim, right, with Haskamas Anshe Knesset Gadol, with the agreement of the Anshe Knesset Gadol, Mordechai and Esther could not do that on their own. They needed the agreement of the Anshe Knesset Gadol.
This was in Israel, or the Anshe Knesset?
This could even have been then, because I don't think Esther ever came to Eretz Israel, right? And Mordechai apparently did, although.
Doesn't it say he was among the ones who left?
Yeah. Yeah.
He's buried up north.
Some say he's buried in Shushan, but according to the you can see there's pictures there of the
Kfar was there north one time. Maybe somebody
Mordechai. It
Forest.
says Mordechai
And Esther.
and Esther as well. Really? Okay. Well, maybe they buried 2 places.
I think they took them out of the Tsama Shushan.
What, they took him out of there? Maybe they did.
Mixing with the grave.
Maybe. Yeah. Okay.
Speak to you about cats about it. Who knows what about before.
That's possible. Okay, so therefore they needed the agreement, and this is probably even the next, so it could be that even the next, the Anshe Knesset Gadol could have been, to some respects, even in operation, even when they were still in Golis. Not necessarily just simply came back here to Israel. Right, because they had to be, they were Kovea for the Doros.
Wouldn't we say they had to be based on this?
Yeah,
Had to be in-
because it was the very next year, I think it was the very next year that they already had agreed to make this permanent celebration. I think, I'm not sure, I have to check that out. So therefore, since originally it was 2 days celebration, so therefore when it came time to establish Purim as a universal, eternal celebration for all generations, therefore it was broken up into 2 days as well. Okay? Now, Berura, this is where the real explanation of why, because we're still trying to understand why Yeshua ben Nun has anything to do with Purim, right? That's what we're going to try and understand now with the help of the Mishna Berura. Okay? Can you continue, Mr. Yao?
והיה ראוי לסכן שכל עיר שהיא מוקפת חומה כמו שושן יהיה דומה לשושן la'asos. Base tet vav.
Bit tesvav,
Betes vav.
meaning on the 15th. So then it really, if you want to look at the matter with one type of a understanding, it's really better to have established that every city that had a wall at the time when things took place in Shushan, meaning at that time is when it should have been established that any city having a wall at the time of the miracles of Purim, from that time onward, it should have been established to have Purim on Tesvav, right?
Right.
Vayirui, and it was even furthermore, it was also proper to do what?
Lislos hakavod. Beshushan ulsakein. Shekol ir shahi mukefes choma mimos achashveros. Yikra'u betesvav.
Right, so really it should have been that the honor should have been given to Shushan and to establish as follows, that every city that had a walled city from the time of Achashverosh, that should be reading on Tesvav, right? But there would have been a problem. Had you done that, there would have been a big problem, right? That logically speaking, that's what should have been.
Okay.
The miracles took place in Shushan. The miracle took place on Tezvav as well as on Yudal. The miracle in Shushan took place on Yud Gimel and Yudalit, and the celebration took place on Tezvav on the 15th. So therefore, any city which was similar to Shushan and had a wall around it at the time of the events in Shushan, then you should have said that city also should be reading on Tezvav as well. However, no, we don't want to do that. Why?
Ach kevan she'eretz Yisrael haisa chareva
Chareva.
ba'oso ace.
Okay, however, Kevan, since She'eretz Yisrael haisa chareva ba'oso eis, however, since that Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, chareva was in destruction, desolate at that time, right? Ba'oso at that time, Eretz Yisrael was desolate, right? No one was living in Eretz Yisrael. Ostensibly, no one was living in Eretz Yisrael at the time. So, what would have happened if you had set up the reading of the Megillah and the celebrations of Purim based on Shushan and any similar city that was based at the time of the miracles of Shushan in Shushan, that they would read on Tesvav? What would have been?
V'yiyeh lefi zeh ayaros hamukafos b'chutz la'aretz hashuvos mehem.
Right. It would be therefore that the cities that were walled in Chutz La'aretz, right, they would be given the chashivas, they would have been given the chashivas of reading on Tezvav, right?
No, because also at the time of Yeshua,
No,
there was
Yeshua.
nobody in Israel.
No, one second. We're trying to understand why we picked Yeshua. Why was the time of Yeshua picked that at that point, any walled city at that point in history would reading on Tezvav? Really, it should be based on the fact that the miracles took place in Shushan, and that any city which was similar to Shushan at that time, right, those were the cities that should have been reading on Tezvav. But since Eretz Yisrael at that time was in a state of destruction, right, what would have happened that the cities in Chutz La'aretz, right, would be reading on Tezvav, whatever cities there might be. Like Prague, for instance, is a city which is considered to perhaps be, in terms of Suffolk, it's a doubt, perhaps it was walled at that time. Let's say, they have other places, I don't know, about Damascus is another city which I think might have been walled at the same time. And Istanbul is a city that might have been walled at that time, right? Might have been many others.
What daf Yeshua ben Nun again?
What?
What daf Yeshua ben Nun?
We didn't get to that point yet, in the middle. So these cities, they even say Montreal. Montreal is a walled city. The original was the old Montreal, but that was much later. But maybe some say Mexico City, right? Maybe those old Aztec places up in the Andes, they were walled cities, right? We had a bunch of Jews in the Andes, right?
You could say the same thing about the time of Yeshiva. The Aztecs may have been there at the time.
No,
of
they
Yeshiva.
could be. Yeah, but the question is, we're trying to understand why why was that made as the criteria? Why
Right,
was
that's
Yeshua?
what I'm saying.
Right.
Since there was no Jewish presence in Israel at the time of Yeshua, so what's the difference between saying, well, there's no Jewish presence at this time, there's no Jewish presence at this time?
Okay.
So why pick one or the other? They're both the same in terms of Jewish presence.
Okay, well, not exactly. We'll see. We're in the middle of the explanation right now. Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. So, since Eretz Yisrael at that time was desolate, yeah, Eretz Yisrael was desolate at the time, right? So what would happen? There would have been walled cities in Chutz La'aretz, right? That were walled cities. There were definitely at the time of the miracles of Purim, there were definitely walled cities in Chutz La'aretz, definitely, and there were definitely not walled cities in Eretz Yisrael. Yerushalayim was destroyed.
Yerushalayim didn't have a wall at that
It
time.
was destroyed. They had to rebuild everything. Everything had to be rebuilt. Right.
Okay.
Everything was
So
rebuilt.
that's a difference, okay.
Yeah. So what would happen? Right? What would happen? It would turn out that if we picked Shushan as the criteria, so on Tezvav, on the 15th of Adar, what would be? There would be all kinds of cities all out throughout the world, maybe Prague, maybe Istanbul, maybe Damascus, Shushan, right? All these different places, maybe even a lot more, right? And if there were Jews there living at the time, then they would be celebrating Purim on Tezvav, throughout Chutz La'aretz. And what would be happening in Eretz Yisrael on Tezvav? Nothing, zero. Everyone would be celebrating on Yud Dalet, and on Tezvav, no one would be celebrating in Eretz Yisrael. Right? So look what the Mishna says. Right? Kevan Eretz Yisrael Haisa Chareva Vosasha. Since that Eretz Yisrael was desolate at that time, according to this, therefore, Aryas Hamukobas B'Chutz La'aretz Chashuvas Mehem. It would turn out that the cities that were in Chutz La'aretz and were walled at the time of Shushan's miracles, they would be more important, they would be more significant than the cities in Eretz Yisrael. Al came, therefore, go ahead, Matizyahu.
Tiknu lichvod Eretz Yisrael shekol ir shehi mukefes mimos Yehoshua ben Nun yikra'u b'tesvav.
Okay, give 1 second. So therefore, in order to avoid this, that the cities in Chutz La'aretz that were walled at the time of Shushan's miracles would be reading on Tezvav, and since Eretz Yisrael was desolate at that time, there would be no cities in Eretz Yisrael reading on Tezvav, celebrating Purim on Tezvav. Therefore, they wanted to give respect and honor to Eretz Yisrael, that any city that was walled at the time of Yeshua ben Nun, they should be reading on Tezvav and celebrating Purim on Tezvav. Right? So that's basically the answer. This answer basically is that had it been Shushan's as the criteria, so that would have made a situation where Eretz Yisrael would not have any celebrations on the 15th of Adar, and there would be celebrations in Chutz La'aretz on the 15th, and that would be a lack of respect, honor for Eretz Yisrael. So therefore we picked Yeshua ben Nun's time as the time that there would be, because again, there were no walled cities in Eretz Yisrael at the time. Yerushalayim, as we just said, was not walled, right? Other places in Eretz Yisrael were not walled. So what time could we pick? Right? If we wanted to give honor to Eretz Yisrael, what time could we pick? So we picked the time of Yeshua ben Nun.
Were there other cities that were walled at the time of Yeshiva, besides Yerushalayim?
There is a suffix.
The more mentions Tver is a suffix. Akko, perhaps. There might have been small areas. I mean, you have all these tells, all these. They're not really populated at this time, but you have Kaldani, all these tells, Megiddo, all these tells. Oh, there are many walled cities at the time. That's what we say in the parsha of Yishlach. Yeshiva sent the Meraglim, right? So he told them to, and they came back and said, the walls are up to the heavens. Many walled cities.
Oh, right.
So it says there that.
You say, Rabbi, why didn't they wait and everybody will do it on one day in Tedvav? It was that on the 13th.
Right.
Why didn't they wait until Shushan fought it out the next day? How can they celebrate so fast? Our brothers are fighting there.
Yeah.
So why didn't we wait and do it in one day, on Tedvav like everybody else?
Right. Well, okay, first of all, during the events of Purim, right, so they knew anybody who had battled on Yud Gimel, right, and they were all battling on Yud Gimel. So they knew on Yud Dalet that the battle was over, and they had won the battle. They had eliminated all the enemies, so they immediately celebrated. I mean, it was a spontaneous thing. There's no enactment of,
There was no cell phones in those days.
what?
There was no cell phones to communicate.
No, yeah, but that's not the point. The point is they had won the battle, so you won the battle.
They didn't want to wait.
First of all, there was no guarantee that there would be another day in Shushan itself. The fact that Esther had to go to Achashverosh and ask for another day of fighting, of battle, that
Wasn't
itself,
clear yet,
not at all. That was, first of all, that was a very big miracle. The Alter from Kelm explains, we don't have to stop in a moment, can't go into too many details, we'll discuss it later on though, but the Alter from Kelm goes into a very detailed explanation why that perhaps was maybe the biggest miracle of everything, because at that point it was still a very big suffix. We have to remember that Shushan, the fact that the first day wasn't enough to kill out the enemies was basically because the highest concentration of Jew haters was in Shushan. Right? Don't forget, the 180-day feast, right, was really a concentrated assembly of all those people who hated the Jews, and they were really getting together for those 180 days to figure out what to do to forestall the building of the Beis Hamikdash and the return of the Jews to Eretz Yisrael, right? And so Shushan became a focus of hate for Jews, and the fact that Achashverosh, who was the Gemara says he was even a greater Jew hater than Haman himself. Haman, being from a Molech, was maybe by nature a Jew hater. Achashverosh, because of his political, military, and other considerations, he hated the Jews even more than Haman. Right? So we'll discuss that more. But so there was a tremendous miracle that took place in Shushan the second day. Okay, Mr. Shlomo.